Okay, so we got rudely cut off by the last video. Apparently there's only a 15-minute limit on how much you can learn in history, but we'll try to fix that next time. So anyways, we were talking about forced modernization in the last video, and Muhammad Ali, the whole point here is that he's going to Europeanize these cities, make it a place closer to what Europe looks like, because he believes that industrialization, modernization is the way, and if we're already modernized in Egypt, they won't want to take us over. Probably the biggest modernization project in Egypt was the Suez Canal, which you can see right here was built across the Isthmus of Suez. And this is a game changer right here, because now you don't have to go all the way around Africa to get to India and Asia. You don't have to go all the way down and around South America. Panama Canal is not built yet. You could just go right through the Mediterranean, right through the Red Sea, and it would cut lots of time off your trip. So this is a very lucrative modernization project. Muhammad Ali's grandson Ismail took over and continued the efforts to modernize Egypt, and he financed the Suez Canal with cotton. The high prices of cotton were due to the Civil War. All the cotton in the United States was being shut out from the market because of blockades. So the price of cotton skyrocketed, and this was something that Ishmael could use to leverage loans for projects like the Suez Canal. The problem is that he overstretched his projects. He did too much too fast. Cotton crashed. He didn't have the money to pay the loans back, and he defaults on his loans. And this is a ton of money. So these British and French banks that loaned the money to Egypt are very concerned about the defaulting loans. And what they do is they force Ismail to give up control of the finances in Egypt. So imagine a bank is allowed to tell a government what to do with their money. Actually, that's not really out of the realm of possibility. So anyways, this upsets a lot of Egyptians because they feel like the Europeans are colonizing through these banks and that they don't like to be told what to do by the Europeans. So the Arabis, I think they call them Arabi with an A in the book, but you could use a U as well. But the Arabis who follow this Arabi, who is the military general, lead an unsuccessful revolt to try to overthrow Ismail, and the British used this as justification for taking direct control of Egypt in 1882 to essentially say, look, the place is out of control, these people don't know what they're doing, and we need to protect our financial interests, so we're just going to go ahead and take over Egypt. So that's how Egypt becomes a colony of Great Britain. Alright, let's switch it up. This is where the video is supposed to start for part 2. This is also a time period of great migration. People are moving all over the world thanks to industrialization and imperialism. And we call this effort the Great Migration, which is a massive movement of Europeans out into the world in the late 19th century. European population doubled during the 19th century, and that meant that land and work opportunities were harder to come by in a lot of these countries. So migrants left Europe for opportunity in new lands. Now, half of the migration was to the United States, but we also see lots of migration to New Zealand, Australia, Brazil, Canada, Argentina, these other colonies or former colonies that are getting self-rule. Lots of Europeans leaving Europe for opportunities in other places. And this is a big deal. We haven't seen this kind of mass migration in world history. So just some examples here. The Irish immigrated to Great Britain, like over to England and also to the United States, where a lot of our ancestors come from. Here in the Boston area, Italians, and McKay uses this term, flew to US and Argentina and would actually come back. So they would actually migrate for a certain season, work in the United States and Argentina for that part of the year, and then come back to Italy for the rest of the year. And that actually was profitable. It saved a significant amount of money, as much as it was a pain. But a lot of them also stayed in the United States and Argentina as well. So that's where you get your influx of Italian immigrants and Italian heritage for us from probably around 1890 to 1920. Germans had two peaks of immigration in the 1850s and in 1880, but after 1880, Germany's a strong industrial country with lots of jobs available, so there's not really a reason for Germans to emigrate after that time period. Jews left Russia for Western Europe because they're being persecuted en masse with the pogroms, which we talked about in the last chapter. And it was mostly a lot of peasant landowners moved. It wasn't the people who were poor working the land and had no land at all. It was the landowners that weren't that wealthy and didn't have a lot of land because they were trying to preserve their status and way of life with less options available for land and keeping the land in European countries. There's also a huge migration of Asian people at this time out into other parts of the world. Millions of Chinese, Filipino, and Japanese migrants moved to places like Hawaii, East Africa, Europe, and America for work. A lot of them took up indentured servitude roles on plantations in Hawaii and Cuba, in these places that used to have slaves, for example. There were also lots of Chinese workers on the railroads in the United States. Now, they weren't really able to get beyond these jobs and settle permanently in places for a while because of what was called the Great White Walls, which were these laws that established that you had to be white to get certain jobs and live certain places. And lots of white-only preference policies kept the Asian immigrants, at least for this time period, in those crappy low-wage jobs. So here is some Filipino people. They are being inoculated on a boat on their way into the United States, and this was a very typical scene during this time.